Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Inspirational Interview series. I'm Hannah Levesque with Heartfelt Wellbeing, and this is our first inspirational interview of 2023. So I'm super excited to introduce you today to Anna Levesque, who, well, I'll mention in a moment, but she's really, really amazing lady. So I'm going to read her little bio here, and then I'm going to add something onto the end. So Anna Levesque is a distinguished leader in the outdoor industry for whitewater kayak instruction. What differentiates Anna in her approach to physical and mental well-being and how this is tied to success on the water and in life. She leads, inspires, and coaches her clients on the self-leadership required to live a healthy, confident, and adventurous life. Sounds familiar, right? And is a sought-after speaker and facilitator for empowering leaders in the outdoor industry. Among her many accomplishments and accolades, Anna is the author of the book Yoga for Paddling, which was named one of the most inspirational paddlers alive by Canoe and Kayak magazine, and voted the most inspirational outdoors person by Blue Ridge Outdoor magazine. She has paddled, taught, and competed on the international stage for close to 30 years and is passionate about empowering her clients with courage and confidence through her company, Mind, Body, Paddle. And another claim to fame, at least in this community, is Anna went to Ayurveda school with me. So we both started our Ayurveda journey, educational journey together. And I'm super excited to have her here today. And we're going to be focusing on how Ayurveda and yoga support a courageous and confident mindset in all aspects of life, including sports and adventure performance. So without further ado, here is Anna.
Hello.
Hey, welcome. So
Thanks,
glad to have
Hannah.
you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I'd love for you just to start with your story of what's the background of how you came to, I guess, both your sports trajectory and your yoga and Ayurveda.
Sure. Yes. So they're okay, it's two separate. So kayaking was first, and I was in university and I needed a summer job. And so I went to, as I was looking. So first of all, setting the stage, I was in university and I was on law school track. Okay. I needed a summer job. So I was going around my hometown, which I grew up in between Ottawa and Montreal up in Canada. I was going out for job search. So I was dressed professionally and nothing was really inspiring me. I was like, I don't know, that doesn't seem very like I'm getting a lot of leads. And this random thought popped into my head. Oh, there's a rafting company across the river that uh, maybe I could do that. I'm going to go over there and check it out. And I went over there dressed professionally. Now that I know something, I've been in the outdoor industry now for 30 years. They must have really thought like they must have had a field day, behind my back, being like, what is this woman? Like, what is this girl doing? So it was too late to become a raft guide. And they offered me a job in the kitchen. And I was like, "Well, sure." And I bet they were like, "This woman is not gonna last a week here." I can just imagine the conversations. So I took the job in the kitchen, super not glamorous, and I went whitewater rafting for the first time, fell in love with it, saw people kayaking, and was immediately hooked. And instead of going to law school, fast forward 2 years later, I had my parents drop me off at a rafting company in West Virginia so I could raft guide when I graduated college. My dad he was also in law, so he was not. I don't think either of them were very happy. And he asked me for several years, "When are you going to get a real job?" I think they were thought it was a phase, and it has obviously worked out for me. So following my passion has always been really important to me. It's not like I wasn't an outdoors person before. I grew up ski racing and loved being outside. connecting with nature has always been really important to me. And I feel like Ayurveda is based on the philosophy, the fact, the belief that we are nature. And so I think my connection to nature is really the through thread. But Ayurveda was actually, my husband and I were trying to start a family, and we could not get pregnant, no matter what we tried. Natural, we did IVF, nothing worked. And I was feeling really depressed, and I was really turning to food as for pacification. And I remember feeling heavy, and my face was broken out. And I had already completed my 200-hour yoga teacher training at the Asheville Yoga Center, and I had started my 300-hour. And I went to a workshop at this time about Ayurveda, and the teacher was from the Bay Area, and he is a Chinese doctor, traditional Chinese medicine doctor, an Ayurvedic doctor, a yoga teacher, and it just blew my mind. And it provided me with, just, I was feeling like I said, heavy, depressed. And he, introduced the principle of incorporating opposite action. And I just thought, I'm going to try this for real. I'm going to try this Ayurvedic stuff for real. And it changed my life. It changed my life. It changed my People who know me would say your body looks different. Um, and I was able to clear my mind, right? Find inspiration again through the path of Ayurveda. And it really helped me. And so then I actually was so inspired by his weekend that when he came back, and a year and a half later, I went back. And then I decided that Ayurveda was really my path. Like, yoga teacher is nice, and I love teaching yoga, and yoga helps me. It's part of it. But Ayurveda was really like, this is the path for me. And I was thinking of going out to New Mexico to study with Dr. Lad. And then I had already been seeing Vishnu, who it was my Ayurvedic doctor. And he launched the program that we both took. And I was like, I'm in. I'm in. I was so excited that I could take it in Asheville. So that's how I got started. And then the two go hand in hand. The adventure piece, the kayaking, being in nature, and Ayurveda, combining them into mind body paddle is a passion of mine. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, those are such great stories of like, and I think it's such affirmation for us to recognize the ways in which life presents itself sometimes in ways that we don't expect and wouldn't have necessarily chosen. It's like life finds us and where we need to be. I love that story about you,
Yeah.
ending up in the kitchen at the rafting company when you were going to be a lawyer, like
I know.
that's totally great.
Yes.
And you've built a very impressive and successful business working with the paddling community. Can you talk a little
Yeah.
bit about how you've seen a need for these kind of ancient bodies of wisdom within that community?
Yes. So I think that throughout the outdoor industry, I think it's changing, but there's a lot of folks in the outdoor industry that, because they mountain bike or because they kayak or because they ski, they equate that with, I'm healthy and I don't need to do anything else. At least that was my experience with the people who were around me. And that was something that I took on as well. Uh, and and yet there's low energy. There is brain fog. There is, you know, uh, a lot of women. I work mainly with women. Lack of confidence, and our minds and our bodies are not separate, as we know. And 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 now we know even more about the gut brain axis, right, which is so important, the importance of the gut microbiome on the brain, and and vice versa, how we regulate our nervous system. And so I think that the way I approach mental agility and mindset is that you can't have an empowered mindset or a confident mindset, or if you're running a difficult, a challenging river to you, it's really difficult to feel empowered if you're not sleeping well, if you haven't nourished yourself, if you've got brain fog because you're snacking all the time. Um, if you don't have a strong morning routine, if you look at your phone first thing in the morning and your nervous system spikes immediately because you're giving your power away to the news and to emails and social media, other people, then you're starting up here already nervous system super activated, and then you go do something even more activating, and it can be really challenging to find your center and that steadiness that you need to uh, I talk a lot about separating fact from story, right? There's what's actually happening, and then there's the story that you're telling yourself about what's happening. And we conflate the two, and we take the story that we're telling ourselves about what's happening as the truth, when it's not the truth. It's a point of view, and I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just a point of view. And yoga and Ayurveda and being present can help us pull those two apart and help us have a more powerful mindset. But that doesn't happen if we're not taking care of our bodies and our minds and paying attention to schedule, right? And the rhythms of the season and our own constitution. I mean, all Ayurveda gives us so much knowledge to work with. So, yes,
I think
that's
yes, that's also powerful. So within that context, so we had said where this focus is how Ayurveda and yoga support a courageous and confident mindset in all aspects of life, including sports and adventure performance. Do you have some key points that you would like to touch on in terms of ways in which yoga and Ayurveda specifically support confidence?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think morning routine is huge. I've already mentioned if you can train yourself to, and I think I work a lot with my clients with this, is so many folks will look at their phones first thing in the morning,
Mhm.
and learning how to create boundaries. So I think of boundaries as, I like the riverbank analogy where the river only exists because of the banks, right? So if there were no banks to a river, there would uh, the water would dissipate. I don't know, would like be absorbed by the land. And within those banks, the river can flow and do its thing. And there's a lot of creativity. And so I see with Ayurveda and a morning routine specifically and schedule is that you create those banks, right, of the river. And sometimes the banks are narrower and sometimes they're wider and sometimes the banks are curving. But within those banks, you have some creativity. So setting aside time in the morning, from whether it's 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., or maybe it's 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. some days, and then having some routines that you're doing every morning, whether that, scraping your tongue, for instance, brushing your teeth, oil pulling, nausea oil, right? Things that you can do, and drinking. I love to drink warm lemon water. Those things take like 10 to 15 minutes, and you're setting a buffer again for your nervous system for an empowered mindset, right? But within those banks, that might be your minimum, but you can also expand. Does that make sense? So I think that for performance, training ourselves to have freedom through discipline is something that Ayurveda is really teaches us. When I first came to Ayurveda, and maybe you experience the same, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many rules. And type A personalities, people who like to excel, who like to perform, it can become overwhelming because, I mean, a morning routine can literally be until lunch, like if you were to do every single thing, every possibility. But I think that the key element is not getting so stuck on doing it right. But and at least training yourself and having the experience that there is freedom through discipline. Then when you do take on some of those rules and practices, they make a difference. and they do create freedom.
Yeah, I think that also has to do with our Western mindset of rules, like or
Mm,
even like food lists. Like I hate giving food lists, right? Because then people are
yeah.
like, I can't eat this, I can't eat this. And I'm like, no, no, no. It's like, let's talk about eating things together and how they affect each other and like seasonal, right? Like
Yes.
it's like we get so black and white, like real strict with it, especially like that, yeah, that achiever mindset of like I'm gonna do it,
Hmm.
like, oh, and it's like it can be perceived as rules, and I really like to encourage people to think of it as like guidelines for experiments. Like run the
Yeah.
experiments and see how you feel.
Right.
Do you feel great when you look at your phone first thing in the morning? Do you feel great if you instead scrape your tongue, dry brush, and drink some lemon water? Like
Yeah.
figure it out for yourself, right? Like don't
Mm,
it doesn't have to be that this is what you have to do. It's you
yeah.
do what makes you feel good, right? Because the
Yeah.
proof is in your experience ultimately. And so I love everything that you're saying about that because it's like that how we start the day, those decisions we make at the beginning of the day really, sets the tone and colors what we experience for the rest of the day. And then day after day after day after day, that creates the
Yeah.
reality of our lives.
Yes. And it's like compounding interest in a bank
Right.
account. Like you're gathering health credits over and over and over again, and they lead to big results. And that's what I tell my folks too. And sometimes in the adventure space and people, if you call them extreme sports space, there's a lot of all or nothing attitude,
Mhm.
where if the workout isn't an hour and a half, then what's the point? If the river isn't at your highest limit, what's the point? If so on and so forth. If I can't do if I can only do 10 minutes of yoga, it's not worth it. And I think that is also something Ayurveda has taught me, is that small consistent actions over time make a big difference. And I
Yeah.
like to coach my clients that 10 minutes of yoga every morning is will give you amazing results, maybe even better results than going to one class a
Mhm.
week, right? That's an hour and a half. uh, Again, it's what works for you. The deal is that I think people are too quick to discard the small stuff
Yes. Yes.
sometimes, the small
Yes,
habits.
small steps. Yeah, I love do you like James Clear who wrote Atomic
Yes.
Habits? Do you follow him? Yeah.
Yes.
So I love his quote that every action we take is a vote for who we're becoming.
Right.
That like the tiniest of actions, like it's still a vote, right? So that
Yes.
10 minutes on the yoga mat versus 10 minutes scrolling or
Yeah.
whatever, it's like those are all votes and over time
Yes.
they add up. Yeah. Well,
So true.
so you mentioned confidence as being part of what you work with your clients with. And I see this show up too. I mean, I'm not coaching people in the sports space or outdoor adventuring necessarily. I think it's something that as women, we particularly struggle with. And I think I see it or I language it, I think, in terms of trusting ourselves.
Hmm.
Like we're very quick to trust other people or data that we see
Hmm.
instead of our own lived experience, or that we could actually shift in how we show up in the world, in line with identity evolution, right? So that we would become, instead of being the night owl, we're the early bird, or the person who's always overeating, to have a more aligned relationship with food. Will you talk a little bit about that confidence, self-trust piece in the work that
Hmm.
you do?
Yeah, it's huge. Uh, Above one of my strategies when I'm running a difficult rapid is to actually, as I sit in the eddy above it, I ask myself that question: Anna, do you trust yourself? And I listen for the answer, but I'm not just listening. The listening is a whole body feeling. And typically if the answer is yes, then I'm like, okay, I'm nervous and I trust myself to take the right strokes at the right time and to read the water and make the moves. And I think that that is important, especially I have a client who, this comes up a lot in that when you're scouting a rapid or when you're scouting a rapid on a river, uh, people love to tell stories about like the worst case scenario, or so and so, this happened to so and so, or this happened to me. And again, it comes back to what I said earlier, is discerning fact versus story. And I think where Ayurveda really comes in to help us is that mental clarity, and so that comes from the food we eat. And again, whether we're snacking, I keep harping on the snacking, but it's always amazing to me how many of my clients, it's like a whole new world. They were taught that they need to eat 7 meals a day, and and once they let their digestive system actually process what they've eaten, all of a sudden there's more clarity and lightness. And I love how in yoga and Ayurveda, talk a lot we talk a lot about, you perform at your best when you're just a little bit hungry. And I love that, because I feel like it's true to have that lightness and that clarity. I'm not talking, so I eat, obviously, and I love food. So I have no problem. Like my lunch is big. I eat 3 meals a day, you know. So I just want to put that out there. And the schedule and allowing the digestion to, the agni to be strong is really helpful in confidence, because, right, it's a fire. So when our fire is strong, not only digestively, but it also helps us sit a little taller. And when we're feeling light and yet steady, right, then we can find that confidence and that trust. And knowing our constitution, and when we have practice eating and designing our diet and lifestyle around our constitution, like you said, it's a test. For me, it's given me the experience that I can trust myself and my unique constitution, and trust that I know what I need in any given moment. So when those people are telling those crazy stories, you know, I can say, okay, that's not true for me right now. I'm standing here in front of this rapid. What do I see? I see the line, and I trust myself. I trust in my ability to get from here to there, and then I can make the decision for myself versus someone trying to tell me, "Oh, well, I don't think you should run that rapid," or getting only telling crazy stories, and then that's what's sticking in my head is, "Oh, that might happen to me." Does that make sense? So, I
Yes.
think that's
I love
really, really important. I think I went on a thanks for following me, y'all, on that thread. That was windy like the river.
that. That's great. No, I love that. I got chills when you said you sit in the eddy and you say, Anna, do you trust yourself right
Mhm.
now? And then you tied that back into yoga and Ayurveda being a path to self-trust, because that is what I have seen and experienced in my own life. And certainly with the women that I work with, is that yes, getting to understand yourself in terms of your individual constitution, in terms of knowing how you show up best in the world,
Yes.
like how to support yourself in that. I call it like living into our superpowers. It's like all
Mm,
of us have superpowers given our constitution. And I know, I'm vata
yes.
pitta and you're kapha pitta, right? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought I remembered that from
Yep.
school. And like we're both very driven, but the place from which we're kind of coming from, is different in our constitutional basis,
Yep.
like where we're showing up from. But we both have that support from yoga and Ayurveda in that alignment of like, yes, I trust myself. Yes, you trust yourself.
Yep.
And so are those really the tools that you're cultivating with the women that you work with, to for them to
Yep.
be able to sit in the eddy and say, do I trust myself? And the answer be yes.
Yes. Uh, yes, we talk about we do, when, uh well, folks will coach with me one-on-one, and then I'll also do group
Mhm.
programming based in kayaking. And yeah, we're doing yoga in the morning. I'm cooking Ayurvedic meals. We're left side lying after lunch on the river. So all of this threading it in, and I work with something I call the good life cycle, or it's my coaching method, and it's a wheel with 8 areas of life that I think are really important. And several of those areas come from Ayurveda, and some of them come from yoga, and some of them are from experience with kayaking. So yes,
Mhm.
I work with all of it. And I do think that even if you're not a whitewater kayaker, um, or into the water, I have folks who work with me who are not. Most folks are, but even if you're not into that, it is important to, I feel, to have adventure in your life. And adventure doesn't mean it has to be outdoor adventure. Adventure is anything that you take on that where you don't know the outcome, you're unsure. So it puts you in that place of discomfort. And that is something that helps build confidence and trust. When we never challenge ourselves to get into the discomfort and get through it, then we don't know. It's hard to know whether do I trust myself, but when we practice that over and over,
Mhm.
then we learn trust and build confidence. And so adventure, I believe, is a big piece of building confidence, because it's really feels awesome to
Mhm.
go through that. "Oh, I'm not sure. Can I do this? Will it work out? I'm gonna do my best. I'm super uncomfortable. This feels terrible, but I'm gonna keep following the steps." And then you get to the other side and you're like, "Whoa, amazing. I did that."
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
looking back up at a rapid. I just did that, and it's so empowering. And that analogy of a rapid could be a project you take on, a raise you ask for. Um, it could be even quitting your job if you're not happy, or it could be taking on, new lifestyle habits. So adventure can look a lot of different ways in life.
Hmm. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that saying that humans are most happy when we're learning something new and expanding our sense of who we are. And
Mm,
that's exactly it. And I love, yeah, just saying like adventure is part of it. And there's lots of different ways
yes.
we can adventure in our lives, but putting ourselves in those situations where we have to draw on skills we've already cultivated and learn new skills. Absolutely. So,
Yes.
so powerful. I know I
For
seek that in lots of ways.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
and for
not a
me,
kayaker.
a big well, and for me, a big adventure would be taking a pottery class. Like, that would totally throw me outside of my comfort zone, and I would be uncomfortable, and I'd go through all the feels of like, "Whoa, I'm not that good at this," or, whatever it is, you
Right.
know? So, that would be a huge adventure for me, whereas it's very, you know, I don't know if it's comfortable, but it's something that it's in your wheelhouse, right? So,
Right. Oh, yes, pottery is very comfortable for me,
right.
but then
Yeah.
there's always, like, pushing the envelope, like throwing bigger pots or trying
Right.
a, a lidded vessel that I've never tried before or something. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
always like you, like running a rapid you've never run before or whatever, like
Yes.
that's, you may have the skills, but then how do you apply those skills to this new situation or this new task? Yes, so, so
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, well, it's been amazing talking with you. Um, I I guess too, I think it's important for us to just um I think both of us like we're working with women in the work that we do. And to say that, I mean, I just feel called to say, I guess, that
Yeah.
really I see that women are the change makers in the world right now, whether
Mm.
it's being a mama or being somebody that other people are like emulating, right? Like there's a lot
Yep.
of empowerment that comes down through being around people that are in alignment with themselves, with their confidence, with their truth. And so much of that for me really came from learning Ayurveda and yoga,
Mm.
to feel like um, I'm good, like I'm good the way I am, that I'm not trying to be like somebody else. It's for me to
Yes.
live more and more and more fully into this
Yeah.
body, this mind, this spirit. And so I just so appreciate the work that you're doing in the world too, because I feel like there's more need than there is support right now. So I'm just always like, we're all
Yeah.
here supporting, because we're in a big evolution, I think, in this time. So
Yes.
thank you for the work that you're doing too.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I think that also supporting each other is so important, and having that abundance mindset that I can't wait to have you come to my group as well and speak, and raising each other up, and you know uh yeah, letting folks know about the work that we do, and collaborating when we can, I think is so important, for that support, and for, yeah, for the change making.
Absolutely.
We can
Yes.
amplify each other's voices. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So if folks are
So I appreciate you
curious,
having me.
yes, my pleasure. I'm so glad to have you. Yeah, and if folks are interested to learn more about what you do, where can you direct them?
Yep, you can go to my website, mindbodypaddle.com. I'm on Facebook, Mind Body Paddle. I'm on Instagram, at Anna C. Levesque, and hopefully
Oh,
Hannah
I
has
said
that
your
spelled
last
out
name
somewhere.
wrong.
It's okay. It's you. It's French Canadian, and the S is silent, but Levesque works too.
I have
But I'm on
always said it
Instagram.
that way and heard it that way. That's so
It's
funny.
Yeah, I know,
Back.
it's yes,
Okay.
that's fine. So I'm on Instagram, so you can check me out there. Also on TikTok, if any of you are TikTok users. Anna, I think it's Anna Levesque. So I put out a weekly newsletter. You can sign up at my website, again, mindbodypaddle.com, and would love, yeah, to hear from you. Would love to hear what you thought about this. So feel free to reach out. My email is anna@mindbodypaddle.com. So
Um,
yeah, would love to hear from y'all.
well, great. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for being here and inspiring us and inviting us into new adventures for the new year. So
Yay.
let's all
Yes,
go
new
have some.
adventures for the new year. I love it.
Yay!
Have fun out there, y'all, and remember to trust yourselves. You've got
Yes.
this.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Anna. Take care.
Thanks, Hannah.